It's your weekend recap. Halifax Sports Talk. Andrew and Dane with you as usual. It is Monday, February 2nd. Talk a little bit of Thunderbirds, a little bit of Mooseheads, and we'll end it with a little bit of Halifax Wanderers as well. Dane, happy Monday, man. How are you?
Not too bad, Andrew. Like I said before, we didn't get the snow that we were supposed to get. It's kind of like that the winter of 2015 when Nova Scotia just got dumped on every single Wednesday of like consecutive weeks. But this year it's just Mondays. But today we didn't get the snow. But we were talking last week about trying to get a successful weekend and what a successful weekend looks like. Unfortunately, this is not a successful weekend for Halifax sports teams. 1-4 is, or 1-3 is the record here. So it's tough to see.
Disappointing. Of course, the Thunderbirds playing at home. The Mooseheads with the Quebec road swing did not go well for those teams, and kind of different pathways for both those teams as well. But yeah, we'll get to those score lines in a second. And I'll just mention, it feels like things are going by fast. All of a sudden, it feels like we just started talking about the Thunderbirds, and now the season is well underway. Handful of games already for this Birds team, and after a great start it was for them, we've certainly seen them slide. And you and I were talking about it backstage before we started recording this podcast. Not as much time left of the Halifax Mooseheads season as it might feel like, and this is a spot here where this Mooseheads team is in, where they got to get it going. They got to get it into drive and start getting back in the win column. So we'll see if they can do that. And, I told you before, it's that time of year where the Wanderers, they're making signings, the schedule comes out, and, all the exciting stuff gets going for training camp. And before we know it, the home opener will be here. So great time to be a sports fan, although you and I are freezing our butts off right now in the East Coast, but at least we're being very entertained, and there's lots of stuff to get to. So we got a great graphic here designed by Dayton, and let's take a look at how the weekend went for the Halifax-based teams. Also, got to give a shout out to Coolbet Canada, our guys at Coolbet. They made that Halifax heave away parlay graphic and the boost there. Unfortunately, it goes 0 for 2. They didn't even get 1 for 2. It went 0 for 2 as the Birds lose and the Mooseheads lose to Shawinigan. So it was the reverse. It was the reverse sweep. And as far as that parlay is concerned for those Halifax-based teams, it was a nice boost at a pretty good price. But Georgia gets it done to start off the disappointing weekend. They beat the Thunderbirds, Dayton, 11-7.
It was tough, Andrew, and I just like you were alluding to that parlay. Not the best if you're a Thunderbirds fan, because you were looking at it and it started with the Mooseheads game the night before, right? And you're like, okay, all we need is a Mooseheads win, and then we can continue on the next night with the Thunderbirds. And no, the Mooseheads had to lose, so that's the end of it right there.
Yeah, it did. The parlay didn't really get too far, but at least, it's not like you would have won anyway if the Mooseheads won, because the Birds ended up dropping it. So I believe I can't remember exactly what the prediction was, but this is somewhat close to what Jeremy's prediction was, I think. He did end up taking Georgia, I think. So he was right about that.
I think it was like 12-7, maybe 11-7. It was very close. It was very close to this. I'm actually surprised that the Swarm kind of just took off like they did. No pun intended. I know they're like a flying logo. But no, 11-7. It was 7-6 at the half, and then Halifax also cut it back to within 1 before Georgia scored like 3 in the final like few minutes. It was a pretty close game. Like all 4 of these games this weekend were pretty close. I know the score was 11-7. They kind of took off at the end, but you can't say anything bad about the performance from the Halifax teams this weekend. They were all very close, especially this one in the Nest starting off the weekend.
What do you think about that? Like, we're looking at teams right now, and we'll solo out this Thunderbirds team that had a clutch effort in Buffalo against the Bandits on the road, and then you hate to say it, but the clutch factor hasn't really been there for this team over the last few weeks. To your point, being a good game, close game going into half, close game going into the fourth quarter. and then not able to get the job done. What do you think about that? I mean, at the end of the day, a loss is a loss and a win is a win, but it almost makes it more and more difficult for management to swallow that pill, for coaching staff, and even the players, of course. And, for all the fans that come out to support the team, because close game going. I mean, right now, 11th place, 375 win percentage. It's not gone well. And it's like you ask anybody. And I said this to Jeremy on Thursday. What would you rather? Your team start poorly and get better, or your team start great and get worse? And the fact is, right now, this team started off on a great note with their home opener, with their road trip, and it's gone downhill since then.
Andrew, it has gone so far downhill. We started off thinking that, man, this Thunderbirds team, they might make it back to the championship. They might have like another kick at the can here. And they went up against Saskatchewan, a tough couple of games, but that was after they were up 2-0 on the season, and we kind of were like, oh yeah, let's go Birds. Now it's 3-5. What do we do with the season? We just kind of shipped off our third best scorer, Theed, and now it's not looking too good. There's a white towel right behind me. I might have to wave it here, but we'll see if the Birds can kind of get back to 500. If they get back to 500, then the season might not be over. The playoffs still definitely a possibility, but man, I would think that, like we were talking about, country night at the Nest, maybe a little bit more energy going around the arena, but no, it definitely wasn't able to lift them past the Swarm in the second half. Going into halftime, you're down 1. The building is probably rocking. I know all Thunderbirds games are usually rocking, but I just think the energy would be enough to lift these guys over Georgia, especially not having won recently. You think you would want to give the home crowd something to talk about.
And it doesn't get much easier. It does not get much easier as we turn the page, we move forward. Look forward to chatting with Jeremy. I have a feeling Jeremy's going to bring the heat this Thursday, so we'll look forward to getting him, Jeremy Keefe, as he breaks down everything for us every single Thursday here on Halifax Sports Talk, and previewing Halifax versus Buffalo and Buffalo Bandits. We know how great they've been over the years, and let's not forget Halifax beat them earlier on in the season. So that's going to be a big one. But you know what? Sometimes the best way to get over a hump is a big game. So we'll see what ends up happening. Look forward to previewing that one on Thursday with Jeremy. But when it comes down to it, headlines right now, Thunderbirds not able to close out games, close after 1, close after the half, going into the fourth quarter, not a bad game. And then those fourth quarters have been very difficult for them. You hate to say this about a team, but unfortunately, the clutch factor has not been there for them as of late. Moving forward, looking into the Halifax Mooseheads, the weekend that they had, Dayton, you mentioned it, 2-1 weekend for them. It was 1-2 weekend for them, and overall 1-3 weekend for the Halifax-based teams. But the only win they got over the weekend was a win against the very team that they beat last weekend, the Sherbrooke Phoenix. And you talked about it a few moments ago, how it was a very competitive weekend for these Halifax-based teams. And when you look at that first game, I will say against Shawinigan, I had my eyes on that game entirely. It was a hard-fought game. That had like a playoff feel to it. It was back and forth. It was great 200-foot hockey. I felt the team played well. That was one of those ones where the coach after the game, you see the scoreboard, you're not as happy about it, but I think that there's a lot of things they did right in that game. And now the unfortunate part is you go to Victoriaville, the next one, and you have another game where you come up short, Dayton. So for a young team, the process is there, and you want to be getting these wins, but it almost stings a little bit more. And I'll tell you, that game against Shawinigan, the game-winning goal being like a squeaker that's maybe a goal that you'd like to have back, but it goes through a ton of traffic. I don't know if there was a deflection on the play as well, but it had one of those feelings to it, right, where it was such a good game that the only way a goalie was going to be beat was going to be a kind of a deflection or a screen type of goal, and that's what happened.
It was tough. It was a tough weekend for the Mooseheads, but that's only on the score sheet. when you look kind of at the smaller details of the games, and that's what I hope Coach Brad McKenzie is doing, because I know as much at this time in the season, all the little points matter at the end of the 60 minutes, but you got to look at the smaller details, and that comes with the games within the game, and the Mooseheads were able to win a few of them. They were able to win the goaltending battle, I think, in the second game when it comes to the game against Victoriaville, but it was a couple of guys like Igor Shilov. He's very...
Sorry, Dayton.
No, it's all good.
I don't know why that didn't work there.
No, it's all good. I'm talking about Igor Shilov. He's one of the most highly touted prospects in the QMJHL this year. He's got 23 goals, and he was tough to stop in that second game. Brisson was playing his second game in the back-to-back, so I think that would have been another tough one. I talked about it before. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Quebec, and you're playing the starting goaltender 2 nights in a row. Usually this would be a Thursday and a Saturday, but yeah, Brisson might have been feeling a little bit gassed, although I think he was the better goaltender in that second game. He just can't get away with the win, and the Mooseheads ultimately fall another game. But luckily, the Sherbrooke game was a little bit better, and they finally were able to pull 2 points out of a road trip here in Quebec, Andrew.
Would you say that like the results are a little bit, indicative of the schedule, or is this another case of what I've been talking about, where this team gets better as road trips go on, as weekends go on? Like, I would love to know their record in the first game of every week. Like they must be like, it seems like the whole sandwich spot, as we call it in the betting world, the second spot, or even the closeout game, they seem to be better in those ones where you'd expect a team to be more fatigued. That's almost when it's almost like, it's like those UFC fighters that need to get clocked in the head a few times to like almost get into the fight and wake up a little bit. This team, like Brad McKenzie, great at delivering his speeches to get them ready for the next day, but it seems like this team almost needs to be pissed off going into the next game in order to get that better effort. But I will say again, like that game against Shawinigan, I felt they deserved better. It was a very quality game. They're going to be feeling pretty good. At least they got that last one. Like, it would have been real bad to come out without a win out of that road trip. So, hey, at least you get that. And you're back at home ice this weekend, which is nice.
I do just want to touch on one thing. In that second game, Samuel Rousseau had an absolute beauty. Actually, he had 2 beautiful goals. Actually, the first one, I'll kind of break it down for you, Andrew. I'll break it down. Sam Rousseau laid a big bump in the corner. It was almost like just a textbook hockey play. Lays a bump in the corner, goes to pick up the puck, works out from the corner in front of the net, around one guy, gets a pass in the slot to the backhand, and then fires one past the goaltender. And I was thinking to myself, what an effort. Started from the corner, laid a bump, got the pass, worked his way to the front of the net, tucked it home in the backhander. Absolutely beautiful. And then on the second one, set up in the slot, he's looking for the redirect, tips it home out of midair. This guy's on a heater, and scores again against Sherbrooke the next day. So just a little bit of a Sam Rousseau shout out there.
Yeah, he's starting to get it going with this team. I think he's got confidence from the coaching staff, and I think he's starting to feel that as well. Like, hey, they trust me. I can make some moves, and the coaching staff's going to give me the freedom to do that. A lot of times you need that. It's like, hey, we brought this guy in. We trust you. You go ahead and do your thing. So, yeah, that graphic doesn't look very good as far as wins are concerned, but at least it makes it look like they were pretty close this weekend with some tough results. It's weird, though. We need both these teams to win at once, because it really feels like when one team wins, the other team does as well. So we'll hope. But the thing is, though, as we were talking about before the show started, it's not like their position in the standings has really changed. And a lot of that has to do with teams around them. So maybe, just maybe, we can look to see them break out, go on a little bit of a mini run, and make some leaps in the standings. But as of right now, there hasn't really been too much movement for them, luckily.
Yeah, definitely. It might have to come down to that last weekend. The last weekend against Newfoundland, it might be kind of crucial to get some points going. They have a lot of games coming down against like local teams, couple like this weekend coming up. They play Newfoundland, a rare Wednesday game. One game against Newfoundland on a Wednesday, and then they go to the back to the home and home against Cape Breton on the weekend, where they could use a couple of points. They could really use a couple of points to kind of get them back up into a favorable position come playoff time. Although we say favorable position come playoff time, this is a team that beat the first place Drummondville Voltigeur last year in the first round in 7 games. So you never know what can happen. I'm excited for the playoffs to see what goes on.
100%. And we're going to be covering that all the way through, post-game shows, live tweets during the games, try and get you guys as much content as we possibly can during that run for them. A couple more things to mention here. And, this one is tough to see, but I'm sure this player is going to find a new home, and we got to bring it up. And, of course, that's Brett Louther. The Saskatchewan Roughriders put out a thank you graphic for him today. And, looking at that graphic, I was a little bit shocked to see, he wins the Grey Cup, and that's the way he goes out with them. But Brett Louther, Truro, Nova Scotia native, I've enjoyed talking about him here on the podcast. And, the Saskatchewan Roughriders put out the release today. Real nice looking graphic, actually, but just says, hey, look, we have released. And some information here that I found online from the Saskatchewan Roughriders here. He was due a $25,000 bonus that was coming up. So I guess they released him right before that. That was due on February 1st. So the release came this past weekend. Drafted by Hamilton, actually, 2013, became a long-term rider after that. Over his career, 81.4% field goal accuracy. But the problem was last year it didn't go well for him, and that was kind of the big problem. His numbers during the season last year weren't great. There were some big kicks that were missed, and unfortunately, he was a guy that had that clutch factor for them for many years. And then it kind of went away just a little bit last year, and they're moving on. But he's going to find a home. And one thing I'm curious to see here, Dayton, because he's an East Coast boy, wouldn't be shocked to see him land with an East Coast team. Or love to have him in the East Coast team, but an East Division team. I'd love to see him, come back to this area, whether it be in an Ontario-based team or Montreal or whoever it might be, or Ottawa. I'm very curious. That's just me speculating here, but I'd be very curious to see if he ends up making his way to the East Division because he spent so much time out west in Regina.
Well, you would think that is probably what he would like to do. He's a East Coast boy, so you would think he wants to come home, right? He's coming down to like the second half, you would say, the latter half of his career. He's had a great career, like you said, on the West Coast, but there's no place like home. And if you could play, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, they're like an hour and a half. Ottawa and Montreal are like an hour and a half plane ride from from Halifax. Yeah. So if you could be that far, that close, I guess you're saying, I wouldn't give that up. So if there's a chance out there for Brett Louther to hop on a roster East, I think he should take it. Any chance.
Sometimes you try and take the positives, right? And I think that could be the positive chance that, hopefully he ends up in an East team. But, I had a chance to sit down and talk with him one time and do an interview, and real great guy. And he's talked about some big moments he had with that team, had some clutch kicks throughout his career as a Rough Rider. And unfortunately, the last year or two hadn't really gone his way. But, hey, they move on, and I look forward to seeing where he lands. And we'll make sure to be talking about that as well. And we're still going to try and get him on before the CFL season begins. So had to mention that. Absolutely wanted to touch on that. And one last thing here, because we always try and touch on a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Let's bring it up. The Halifax Wanderers have released their schedule, the 2026 home matches, kicking off April 18th, and it closes out Sunday, October 25th. So it's a long season, Dayton. Looking forward to a huge season for the Halifax Wanderers.
Andrew, the last home game being on my birthday, October 25th, if that is not a sign I don't know what is. Either something good's and it's against the new team, the FC Super from Quebec. So it's like an all Quebec. Touched on this a few episodes ago. It's an all Quebec, like maybe French Super team. Who knows? But they're only playing. They're only building the roster with French-born Canadians. So it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against the rest of the team, or rest of the teams in the league.
And, I think looking at this schedule, it's a real big mix, a real big blend. And I think did a good job this year of kind of separating that travel. They're not going to be having too many away games in a row or too many home games in a row. It's very well spread out. So really good to see that. Just a quick little message here from Derek Martin. He shared on their website stating in 2025, they set new records for attendance at the Wanderers grounds with over 100,000 fans coming through their gates. Said that 2026 is the year Canada welcomes the world, and we couldn't be more excited to welcome our fans back for a terrific slate of matches at home. So look forward to watching the Wanderers this year. We look forward to covering it for you guys all summer long here on Halifax Sports Talk. So whether it be April 18th, whether it be May 2nd, whether it be October 25th, hope you guys get a chance to check out a Halifax Wanderers game this season. So that will do it for the show for this week. Dayton, any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, maybe I'll do if I don't go down to Pat's later on this week, maybe I'll do a pre-game for the Wednesday game on Wednesday evening. Maybe something little Wednesday morning video to get the fans going for the Wednesday game against Newfoundland.
I love it. I love it. Big game. Got to bounce back. Got to take advantage of being at home for this Halifax Mooseheads team. Got to win some home games. Got to protect home ice here in Halifax. Get the Scotiabank Center rocking, and hopefully they can show up in a big way. So looking forward to the Olympics, man. I can't wait for that. Only a couple more days left before the NHL break. And so much going on right now in the sports world. We can't wait. And of course, we're going to be talking about the Olympics hockey on the show. We have to. Anybody talking sports on any podcast is going to be talking about the Olympics. And it's an excuse to. We've got some pretty good Maritimers on that team with McKinnon and Crosby. And let's not forget about Marchand and the boys. So looking forward to a really, really good time over the next few weeks on this show. We'll have Jeremy with us on Thursday, breaking down a big, big game, Halifax versus Buffalo in the NLL. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.